Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Thorp, Washington, USA. On a perfect summer evening here in the Kittitas Valley. The local time is 5:43, and we will begin our program on Thorp Prairie this evening. I'm sorry if you tuned in for a program on CWU geology. That was the plan, but it's too perfect out here to be walking around inside of an academic building. So we have a field trip, a spontaneous type field trip planned, and I hope that you enjoy it. A little 5x5. Yeah, let me check the framing on this. I don't have my laptop, so I can't totally. So you can see that white little water tower. Yeah, that's kind of what I want you to see. Is Mount Stewart visible to you? A triangular peak with snow on it. It's kind of hazy. You see it? I wish you could smell this hay. I'm homesick right now smelling this hay. They got this hay down perfect. The sun came out, the wind shut off. They've got this ready to go. I suppose they'll be out here haying tomorrow morning. Smells wonderful. If you have an ag background, that all that nostalgia comes back. So look at the schedule. The sun's in a different spot than we normally have it, but I want you to see this view as much as possible. And we won't be here long, by the way. You're on the ladder right now, but we're hitting the road in a bit. So can you even read this? I guess we'll just do it this way. So you remember Carl Loquist talking about landslides? That was Tuesday. That was a couple nights ago. Last night we talked about Thomas Simons. And again, we are improvising out here at Thorp Prairie as opposed to doing a program on CW geology. Sorry, Patrick. Saturday morning, giant current ripples. Sunday morning, Yellowstone geology. So I've got the van here. I want to do some thank yous. Actually, I tossed the mail into the back of the van. So let's start with a thank yous. I don't know if you hear just a little bit of highway traffic. You've got I-90 behind you, about 500 yards away. Let me flip you around for a second. So you might be able to see in the down over here. That's the freeway, Interstate 90. So you're looking south. So this way is west. This way is east. You're looking south to Menashtash Ridge. And now you're looking north, kind of northwest actually. So a box from Thibodaux, Louisiana. John sent some loofahs that he grows and some other things that I don't have time for, John, sorry, but I definitely have to show this. Can we get this lit up? This is a 1901 edition of A System of Mineralogy by Dana. This is the classic mineralogy text. And so I will treat this very carefully. I'm not even going to open this, it's so fragile, John. And I will promptly get this into our university library collection of old books related to geology. So thank you, John. That's yours. You are a generous person. Appreciate it. Keith from Kelso, thank you. Keith found this game. Have you seen this game? Are you dumber than a box of rocks? So Keith made an adjustment. I guess it's a trivia game. It's debatable. But thank you, Keith. And Trevor Contreras is one of the few landslide geologists in the state of Washington. He does work for Washington Geological Survey. He watched our program with Carl and even contacted me before that visit with Carl. And Trevor thanked me for what I'm doing and wanted to pass along that the Washington Geological Survey has a publication on Mima Mounds. Sorry about the sun here. I guess we'll do it this way. Mima Mounds, and you know, not the solution, of course, just a survey of ideas by Washburn back in 1988. But more exciting to me, Dan Coe. You know I'm a fan of Dan Coe, the visual arts person and also a geographer and also a geologist at Washington Geological Survey, teamed up with Trevor to create these amazing prints. And those who are really into geology recognize this immediately. These are the sketches of J. Harlan Bretz in the first decade of the 20th century with his high school students, visiting the Mima Mounds and putting them in his dissertation, his PhD dissertation. And so, Trevor, it's unclear to me if these are for sale or not. This says this is a reproduction of the first topographic map of Mima Mounds taken from bulletin number 8, Glaciation of the Puget Sound region by J. Harlan Bretz, published by the Washington Geological Survey 1913, digitally remastered by Dan Coe and Trevor Contreras, and printed by Hoban Cards on an old-fashioned letterpress, March of 2012, without the use of tax dollars. So I don't know what's behind that message, but so if I hear from Trevor, or Trevor maybe is watching, oh, I'm sorry, here's a note from you. Trevor, sorry. So here's Trevor's card. Not sure how the focus is doing there. Can't read quickly enough, Trevor. I'm not sure those are available for, I'm sure many people would want to purchase something like that. I'm guessing they would. And finally, back of the envelope, as they say, Patrick, age 7. Thank you for labeling the curly hair, Patrick. And this is pretty accurate, I must say. Nice job. You captured it perfectly. And you also sent you sent a letter also, and then you sent another piece of art, and you wanted me to pass it along to Randy up in Wenatchee. So I will get this to Randy, and I'm sure he will enjoy that, Patrick. Thank you very much. And thank you for the very kind letter. Last night I enjoyed myself, the Thomas Simons show. Hope that you enjoyed the program. I also tried something last night involving Super Chat, and it's always interesting to learn new things. The plan was to have a couple of people donate using Super Chat using a $2 amount, and that was going to be it, so that I could test and see if the thing worked properly, and things kind of snowballed from there. So I really don't know what to say except thank you very much. And I have turned off Super Chat. I need to figure out the details of how that works. And Liz and I are fine financially. So things snowballed into talking about sending checks to us directly. And can we hold off on all of that, please? Everybody's heart is in the right place, and I'm so grateful for it. And if things get grim employment-wise over the next year, then I'll know that I can go to Super Chat. But right now we are fine. So you see my hand like this. So please hold off on that. Can we just go back to this and not deal with the money stuff? That would make me feel better if we just talked about geology. So again, thank you very much. But no talk of Super Chat or money or anything tonight. Okay? Let's enjoy this beautiful night that we have together. I feel like I want to check in, and I can't even really see your comments very much with the light right now, so I can see them well enough. I just want to make sure we're good. Are we functional? Do we have to make any adjustments? I've got 3 bars here, and I'm pretty sure the place we're going has 4 bars, so I'm confident for the most part we're not going to have major problems. Famous last words. This episode of Nick from Home brought to you by Lighthouse Cosmic Crip Apple Cider Blend. Not really, it's just water, but I love these jugs. Don't take that clip, Kathy, please. All right. Sorry. You gotta love it. Cosmic Crisp, you gotta love it. Oh my God, it is dead calm out here. I'm so glad we came out, man. It's been so darn breezy for, feels like the last month. I mean, I know it can be worse and all that, but hey, man, things are fine. Oh, and I picked up the kids who flew and traveled for, I don't know, 36 hours or something. Beirut to Frankfurt, Frankfurt to Chicago, Chicago to Seattle. So that all turned out fine. So they're hanging out. Of course, they're young, so they're out climbing already. It's like, doesn't jet lag exist anymore? It's like, I don't think so. I don't think so, old man. I've been standing here next to this remote country road it's a Tainham Road, in case you're a Google Earth people, Google Maps person, you want to see where I am. I'm on East Tainham Road, looking north. I'm right at the Springwood Ranch. And been standing here for probably 25 minutes and seen 2 cars. So it's perfect, no traffic, etc. Okay, I got 1 minute. Give me a second to think about what we're doing, and we shall begin. Thank you for joining us tonight. See, let me try something quick. So you can still... Is that too much shade if I just do that? Can you read these things? I mean, I don't have it lit up, but does that work? Okay, good, thanks. Hang on, Patrick. Well, a pleasant good evening to you all. Welcome to Thorp, Washington, USA. We're in the Kittitas Valley. We're taking advantage of a perfect evening weather-wise to do a little field trip here. And we're about a 10-minute drive from the backyard, by the way. And it just occurred to me this morning, as I was thinking about actually doing this, we have done a few other field trips with this backyard series, but we've been out in the desert. In other words, we've gone east away from Ellensburg. Well, this is what it looks like just a few miles to the west of Ellensburg. It looks like a completely different place, doesn't it? I mean, where's the sage? Where's the hot lava rock? Where's the rattlesnakes and everything else? Well, in general, you are looking to the northwest, and in general, if you travel this way, on Interstate 90 or the Old Thorp Highway or whatever, if you're driving towards this direction that I'm pointing, and I'm not making this up, with each mile that you drive, you pick up 1 inch of annual precipitation. So the Cascades are a major topographic barrier for the weather systems on the west side and Seattle, etc., and Puget Sound and Pacific Ocean ultimately. And then as you get away from the Cascades in this direction, downwind, you kind of lose moisture as you go away. The rain shadow effect. You might have to Google that one if you haven't heard about that. So this is a classic place to study the rain shadow effect. And this view that you're looking at is kind of heading towards the wet stuff as opposed to being out 30 miles to the east of Ellensburg. Okay, so that's more of a geography lesson, I guess. Do you see with your sharp eyes, can't zoom for you, do you see this mountain? This is Mount Stewart, and a bunch of puffy clouds there, And down below, hopefully you can at least get a sense of it. Now, we don't have a nice up close and personal view of Stewart, but that's one of the reasons I chose this spot. And let me give you the game plan for our little time together here this evening. I'm hoping I don't get carried away here. You're on the ladder and I'm right next to the van, and I hope I don't go more than 15 minutes here with you, okay? And then we're jumping in the van. I've got the gizmo. I'm on this country road that's got nobody on it, and we're gonna drive 10 minutes up onto Thorp Prairie. We're not on Thorp Prairie yet. We're gonna walk around up there. We won't see the Stewart Range. And then I think if we drive another 5 minutes past Thorp Prairie, I can get you to a secret spot where we can get a good view of Stewart. In other words, a much closer view of Stewart, and that will be kind of the cherry on top of this little field trip we're doing. So, as a result, I won't talk a whole lot about Mount Stewart here at the ladder because we can barely see it, but those that are new to us, Mount Stewart represents a much debated topic involving massive movements of the crust along the Pacific Northwest coastline. And I've showed this forever. I'm not really going to show it much here tonight. But Mount Stewart, that mountain range, is made out of rock that many of us now are fully embracing the idea that that rock was originally down in Baja, Mexico, and is now mostly up in British Columbia, and a little bit of that is in northern Washington. So assuming you can see this looks awfully dark to me, but I think you said you could actually see this. Here's this cartoonish block of crust moving almost 2,000 miles, one earthquake at a time, between 85 and 60 million years. So there's 93 million year old granite in that Stewart Range, and that's a story that's kind of in the background literally, and also really is in the background of our discussion during this field trip. Another concept that's in the background of our discussion. Okay, so I think you can see this. So if you can see Stewart, you say you can see Stewart, can you go follow the skyline, car number 3, can you follow the skyline to the left of Stewart, and can you see a dark forested ridge? I don't really know if I can point to it exactly, but that's Table Mountain. What is it? It's the skyline in the distance, but it's black. It's a dark forested ridge, Table Mountain. Okay, who cares about Table Mountain? It's not Table Mountain. Take 2. Do you see Mount Stewart? Yes. Do you see that forested ridge to the left of Mount Stewart? Yes, I do. What's the name of that dark forested ridge? That's called Lookout Mountain. That's called Lookout Mountain. And Lookout Mountain is significant for a couple of reasons. Most famously in Washington geology, you say you can see this, right? These are the flood basalts of much of the inland Pacific Northwest that came out of these fissures. And there is a very sharp boundary to where you finally get out of those basalts. I feel like I want to light it up, but I guess maybe it's not necessary. Lookout Mountain and Table Mountain, which, I don't know, maybe I can swing you over there. No. Both Table Mountain and Lookout Mountain are the end of the line. They are truly at the edge of the German chocolate cake, and therefore, as soon as you get up on that forested ridge and look north or look west, you are out of the flood basalt story. Remember, Simon's last night, Israel Russell talking about the Great Plain, talking about these great lavas. They knew how much of a story it was here in eastern Washington and eastern Oregon. And Simon's was even going on into California with that stuff. That's the end of the line right over there. But both of those concepts, Stewart Granite, Baja, BC, and Lookout Mountain, Columbia River basalts, not really our topic tonight. Our topic, who's got a stopwatch? Am I already approaching my time limit? Our program is focusing on Thorp Prairie. And Thorp Prairie is an Ice Age story. Not an Ice Age flood story, it's an Ice Age story involving an alpine glacier that once upon a time was called, and I guess still is, the Yakima Valley Glacier. So it wasn't until the mid-1960s that a gentleman by the University of Washington came here to Thorp Prairie and walked all over Thorp Prairie, as we will do in just a few minutes, and walked on elk heights, and walked over to Swamp Prairie, and walked up the Teanaway. And it's in the mid-1960s. He's not, he's got a 56 Buick and a picnic lunch and a bottle of beer in the back, maybe, I don't know. But Stephen Porter is a well-revered, and rightly so, glacial geologist from the University of Washington, passed away just a few years ago. And he did amazing work in many areas, including this Kittitas Valley location. So this is the original from William Prater, who used to go on some of our field trips. Rest in peace, William, Cle Elum, Washington. So this is from a Pacific Coast Friends of the Pleistocene Field Conference, September of 1969. So that really plunged me into this discussion of glacial deposits, alpine glacial deposits, first mapped by Stephen Porter and then mapped again in more detail and slightly different interpretation by one of Porter's students, a guy by the name of Richard Waite. And if you're a fan of geology, you know that name, Richard Waite. He's famous for his Ice Age floods work. But Waite, one of his first jobs for the USGS, was here in the Kittitas Valley, walking Thorp Prairie in the, I guess, the mid-1970s, and reinterpreting a little bit of Porter's stuff. What did they find? Car number 4, somebody to keep track. So let's cut right to it. This is a map that's not well lit, but hopefully you can read it well enough. We're going from Snoqualmie Pass up at the Pacific Crest Trail, right at the crest of the Cascades, down Interstate 90. This is a map that Tom Foster put together. And here we are at Thorp. And the main message is we have multiple advances of the Yakima Valley Glacier. Multiple advances of this glacier, and each of the advances has a separate name. In other words, there's a different generation of glacial deposits for each of these advances. And I've given you some numbers there that you might be able to read. I'm not going to read the numbers right now, but what I am going to do is get the concept, and then we're going to get on the road. This is review from probably 2 months ago. I think it was the Orange Jello episode. And I was talking about Snoqualmie Pass, and I was talking about the Yakima Valley Glacier, and I was talking in that live stream, whatever it was, Snoqualmie Pass, I think was the title, about this really interesting geometry that you can actually see in the view here. So before we lose this view, we really are on a field trip now. This is what we do when we go out with our folks on Sundays. What I typically do, Carl has a different approach. What I typically do is I say, let's just stop and observe first of all. That's an important part of geology. Let's just slow down and make some observations. And I can't do that with you in real time, so let's actually just do it together with me talking. Perfect, right? So I see this hayfield right in the foreground, and you do too, and it's flat. And I see another field that's just beyond this freshly cut hay. Can you see down there? It's kind of a buff color, and there's a brown building. That's the Springwood Ranch. There's a bunch of wedding receptions and geology reunions and all sorts of things happening down there. So in other words, we have 2 flat fields at different elevations. And then we go a little further. Then there's kind of a cliff. I'm down low. Can you see it? And then there's another flat field, which we can kind of trace across the way. And it turns out, can you see that? Can you see kind of from the lowest part of the valley up to Stewart, about a third of the way up, there's a very obvious, brightly lit, flat field. Do you think you can see it? Well, it's not an accident that field I'm talking to across the way, a third of the way up, is the same exact elevation as where you are standing right now. There's a match in elevation. And I'm going to flip you around. I'm not flipping you off, I'm flipping you around. that flat field continues behind you, and the freeway is built on that field. So what I'm talking about is a terrace, a glacial terrace. And glacial terraces are important. Now, if we have an actual alpine glacier, still struggling with the light, but I'm going to hope that you can see this well. Now, what if I think I'm shifting you for just a second. I want you to see this well. Did that screw up your buffering? Are you okay? Okay, much better, lighting-wise. Still have a glare, I'll deal with it. So, I need my marker, hang on. Hang on, Patrick. I'll do this as quickly as I can. So here is our Alpine Glacier coming down from the Cascades, and I think many know that you can form a moraine, a glacial moraine, that's made out of poorly sorted rocks, boulders down to grains of sand. And those rocks were moved by the glacial ice. The boulder and the grain of sand were moved the same distance, and they were deposited in this pile. But the key point is it's a set ridge called a glacial moraine, and we know it's a glacial moraine because of this poorly sorted rock. Thorp Prairie is a moraine from the Thorp Prairie Advance, one of the multiple advances of the Yakima Valley Glacier. You're like, that's confusing. Why'd they call it the Thorp Prairie Advance if we're going to Thorp Prairie? And the answer is Thorp Prairie, two different places, same advance, same elevation, same everything. But this is not the terrace story. Remember, I was just pointing out the terrace? The terrace is something different. The terrace is also a creation of the glacier, but not directly from the ice. Instead, the terrace is made out of layered material deposited by running water, and the sorting is quite good. So, glacier comes in, deposits a bunch of rocks directly by the ice, that's the moraine, deposits another thing further away from the ice. This is meltwater coming off of the glacier and taking some of the rocks and laying them down almost like a river would. It's like a braided system of rivers coming off of that glacier. Now the point is, what happens when the ice melts away? We're left with two deposits, a glacial moraine and a glacial terrace. Here's the biggest point of today. Are we still here? The elevation of the top of the moraine and the top of the terrace are the same thing. You need to see it now. Still kind of blinded, so I'm just gonna fly blind here. I've pointed out at least two different terraces, and now do you see right below Lookout Mountain, there's a kind of a cliff that's in the shade? And if you follow from that cliff in the shade to the left, there's a skyline. So let me do that again. Mount Stewart, right? Lookout Mountain, forested ridge on the horizon, cliff that's in the shade in the foreground, and then if we go to the left, there's the skyline in the sun. That's this kind of gradual land. That's Thorp Prairie. And that's the moraine. That's the moraine. Thorp Prairie is the moraine, and there was ice right above that skyline. Can you imagine that Yakima Valley Glacier? I don't know, maybe it was a 500 feet, maybe 1,000 feet of ice hanging out right there during that Thorp Prairie Advance. But there's a problem. And the problem is, and I drew this one out because I knew we were going to get here. The problem is the scene that you are looking at has this, doesn't it? I pointed out the Thorp Prairie which is a moraine. I pointed out the terrace that your ladder is sitting on, and I pointed out a terrace that's below us. This is confusing. I thought I said that a terrace is from one glacial advance, make a moraine, make a terrace, and everybody agrees at the top of the elevation of those two landforms. And that is true. That's how it works. But then how do you explain the actual view that we are looking at here, where the top of the moraine does not match this terrace, and the top of this moraine definitely does not match this terrace either? What's your answer? Give me 5 minutes and we're gone. I'm going to do this quickly, even though it's a complicated concept. You're looking at a sketch drawn by Robert D. Bentley, Sweet Old Bob, SOB we used to call him. And I want you to notice that there are different terrace elevations, and those elevations of the terraces match on the other side of the Yakima River, and each terrace is a separate glacial advance. You want to see it in 3D? Bob was good at drawing in 3D. I'm totally blind, but hopefully you can see this. So the Yakima River is tucked down in that valley that you were looking at, and here's our different elevations. The concept is, and this is a surprise, and this is the hard part, that the lower the terrace, the younger the age. The lower the terrace, the younger the age. And so the Thorp Prairie surface is actually higher than where we are right now. We're standing on top of the Indian John surface. So I'll just try to do it in words, and then I think we'll just work on the concept maybe when we walk with Gizmo, and I'll try it again with you. Maybe I can see your comments a little better also. The general comment, let me try one more thing. This might work. This is from Porter in 1969. This is actually a nice diagram to go with the view that you just had. There's Stewart on the horizon. Here are these different glacial advances of different ages. You can see the numbers now. These are our best guesses for the ages in years ago. So the most recent advance barely got anywhere, 11,050 years ago. The Domrey advance got to Hyak, got to the dam on Lake Ketchelis, etc., etc., etc. Indian John. Here's the Thorp Prairie advance depositing some stuff at Thorp Prairie. And then Lookout Mountain. Here's another reason Lookout Mountain is important. Lookout Mountain never was totally covered in ice, but it was close. Lookout Mountain kept its chin up above all of the ice advances, even the oldest advance, which we call Lookout Mountain Ranch advance, roughly 1 million years ago. So this is haphazard, but this is not a lecture. I just gave you some background to try to get you ready for our drive. So I think it's time for us to do that. So let me give you one last view where you can maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody who gets the concept of how you could get terraces getting younger as you go down, who actually saw maybe our Snoqualmie Pass episode, maybe you could kind of help each other out and do the hefty lifting for me. And I'll stall a little bit to get the gizmo working, okay? We're going to leave the ladder. Nobody's going to take the ladder. Okay, if that was really slow paced for you and everything else, the rest will just be kind of moving and looking and talking and different vibe. So you're, let's see, you're leaving the cradle of civilization. Motion sickness people, close your eyes. And I'm going to go away for just a second. I got to, oh, actually I'm not, am I? Yeah, I am, maybe. I don't have to switch to data though. I'm already on data. So I've got to do a couple things here. Just hold on, would you? Okay, you're on the gizmo. Daddy's proud of himself. That was a record. I think I want to show you something else before we leave this little spot. And this will give me a chance to just make sure that we're doing okay here. We don't have any buffering problems. Actually, I think I'm going to lose a bar here, so we might have a little problem right here. So keep in touch with me, would you? I just want to show you there's some volcanic lahars that I'm just going to give you a quick little glimpse of. We don't have enough cell coverage over there to do a field trip. Now, can you see between the trees on the left and the wooden shed on the right? In the distance there's some white layers. I think I showed you a video I did there with Tom Foster, with Tom Tabbert flying. So that's another story yet with Cascade volcanism, and just thought I'd toss that in here. But we're getting, oh, did I lose? Am I down to 2 bars? Did we have a problem there? Okay. So Larry the Ladder is staying here. We're going to take a little drive on this very remote road. I'm not going to hang you out the window because I learned from last week that was a problem, audio-wise, and didn't even think about that. I washed my windshield for the person who was bothered that I had a dirty windshield last week. I did it for you, Toots. Seatbelt on. Actually, I want to do one thing. Can I do this? This is the old textbook that I used to use in my class called Geology by Stan Chernikoff, also University of Washington. And this is the book that has the wonderful watercolors in it, illustrations. And I don't know if Stan and the artist were thinking about the Yakima Valley Glacier when they did this, but this is perfect, a perfect portrayal of what we're talking about. I don't have enough hands now, but Snoqualmie passes on the left up by my thumb. You can think of this as the biggest ice advance coming all the way down to Thorp and laying down the terminal moraine out on the edge. They're not showing the outwash because that's too complicated for this kind of a diagram from a 101 textbook. But a beautiful job, and that's the visual we need. The Yakima Valley Glacier going maybe, I don't know, at its max maybe 40 miles, 50 miles maybe. Okay, so we're going into the sun right now, so the lighting will not be great. So I might, let me do this. So we're driving on the Indian John Terrace, and I can try to add to this complicated concept then. So like, where's the moraine that matches the elevation of this terrace? And the answer is Indian John Hill, which is 10 miles away from here. And so the concept, if you haven't figured it out yet, is each time you fill the glacier, each time you fill this valley with outwash, then there's a bunch of erosion of the outwash. You scoop out most of it, and you only leave fragments of the terraces on the margins of the valley, like we're driving on now. And then the next ice advance is a smaller glacier with a lower elevation, and that, in a nutshell, is why we actually have younger terraces at lower elevations. Okay, there's a chance I'm going to lose you as far as cell coverage in the next 3 minutes. I'm going to drop down into a hole. So if we lose each other, just be patient, and I'll see you again in about 5 minutes, okay? I think we go down to one bar here, down right along Tainham Creek. If you're still with us though, that ridge right ahead is the terminal moraine. That's the Thorp Prairie terminal moraine. You see it's higher than us. And so the terrace that used to extend over this area back then has been eroded away. So in about I think we're still together, huh? You haven't frittered out on me? We're going to climb up this moraine, which is essentially the very clear margin of where that ice used to be 600,000 years ago. That's our best date. I think we could get some people in here to improve our accuracy on that date, but that's the best we have so far. I-90 is on your left, and in general, there's good cell coverage right next to the freeway. Look at this, though. This is dramatic. We're leaving a terrace, Indian John Terrace of 130,000 years ago, and we're going to climb pretty dramatically a terminal moraine from the Thorp Prairie Advance. And as we climb, the cell coverage will get stronger and stronger. We're going to take a right on Thorp Prairie Road, and that's convenient because we're going to Thorp Prairie. I'm probably going to keep live streaming until we return to the ladder, because when we drive back on this road, I think it's going to be perfectly lit. Now you're going to pick up some road traffic now because the freeway is down to our left, I-90. We're just parallel. We're driving west, and I-90 is just below us. But here we go. We're climbing up a glacial moraine. So that's the freeway I was on last night driving to SeaTac. If you know the drive on I-90, that's where you get a third lane to climb. There's a road cut coming up here. We're going to stop. Car number 7. Expecting Bubble Boy around the corner here. I love you, Brogan. Okay, let's slow down here. We're getting some good lighting. So, interesting landforms over there, wouldn't you say? Can you get a sense of the terraces? So we're higher. We left our younger terrace, our Indian John Terrace, But now we're at the level of the terraces that match the Thorp Prairie Advance. You're looking south. The freeway's down in the hole right below you. So how can I prove to you that we're on a moraine instead of a glacial terrace? And the answer is I need to show you some boulders, right? Don't I need to show you some glacial erratics that are nested in a bunch of poorly sorted glacial till? I think the answer is yes. So I don't think we'll stop here and get out, but I think we will just kind of look out the window at this outcrop. This is the first place for us to really see, and it should be lit quite well. Yeah. So here's our first glimpse at some glacial till. And I want you to notice that everything's loose. There's kind of some sand. There's some rocks. But the rocks are, look at how discombobulated they are. There's no layering. They were all just plopped here by something. These can't be river rocks. Look at how angular some of them are. And occasionally you get a big boy in there, right there. That's maybe a meter-sized boulder. And you get the sense now that everything up here on this Thorp Prairie is made out of that glacial till. Nobody gets it. Oh, it's Third Person Thursday. Nick Zentner hopes you're enjoying this. And Nick Zentner is noticing that we actually have a little breeze that we're going to have to just deal with. All right, let me slow down again. Yeah, Nick Zentner wants to show you Thorp Prairie. So lighting is not perfect, but you're starting to pick up some boulders now, aren't you? And you're like, you know, if I show you one boulder or something, you're like, whatever. That was probably moved in here by a farmer. I don't know why a farmer would move boulders in, but whatever. But as you start wandering around, and we're going to take a little walk, we'll see that there's thousands of boulders. And what you are kind of gazing over here, you see how kind of it's flat up here, but it's not flat. Do you know what I mean? We're going to use Carl's word from Tuesday. It's hummocky. This is the surface of Thorp Prairie. And if you're on a glacial moraine like this, I'll settle down here for a second and give you a decent shot. Let's just do it when we walk. I'm going to pull up over here. Yeah, we're picking up some breeze. Good shot of table. God dang. Good shade of, good. Take three. Good shot of Lookout Mountain straight ahead. But I will, I'll keep that to myself. All right, so we have some precious gifts in here, so I better lock up. We're going to take a little walk-see. Got some crickets for your enjoyment. We'll see if my sponge and foam reservoir tip over the mic will help us with the audio batting around. Okay, we're getting some better and better light here. That's just going to continue to improve if you hang on with this. 640 is what I have time-wise. So we're looking back at Menashtash Ridge, but we'll get a better and better view of that. Yakima River Cane's in the distance. Who cares? Too far away. Nice stretch of road. Thorp Prairie Road. And pretty impressive, wouldn't you say, that kind of blonde ridge, not the skyline, but the blonde ridge that's just below it, that's a terrace. A Thorp Prairie terrace, pretty good. Okay, let's walk into the wind. Come on, Gizmo. Come Come on, Gizmo. Come on, Gizmo. Hey. Red-winged blackbird. I'm going to shut up for a second and we're just going to walk. Walking on Thorp Prairie. Nope, I lied. I'm not going to shut up because it's perfectly lit right now. So, top of Table Mountain, very top, never covered in ice, but that oldest advance, roughly 1 million years ago, the first major advance of the Yakima Valley Glacier, almost covered the top of Table, and then look at this gradual slope that the wind turbines are on over there. Now that's the big disagreement between Porter in the 1960s and Waite in the 1970s. Porter says, that's gotta be the outwash plane for that earliest advance of the Yakima Valley Glacier, because there's a perfect match between the glacial moraine material that's up close to the top of Lookout Mountain and the elevation of this kind of sloping outwash plain. But Waite says, I've looked into that stuff and I found a tephra, an ash layer that's 3.7 million years old, and that's way too old to work for that story. So to me, that's still a bit of a mystery. Who's right? I think, even though I think the world of Waite, I think I still kind of side with Porter on that one. That looks like an outwash surface to me. Okay, we're going to go in here to find a nice looking erratic. And of course, I forgot my hammer again, so I guess I'm not a real geologist. I got to put you down for a second. Hang on. Sorry about that. It was disrespectful. Terrible light looking right into the sun, but it'll be different when we go the other way. One of the first videos that I ever filmed outside with Chris Smart and Rick Spencer from Central Washington University. We made a little roadside geology episode out here. Of course, it was a super windy day. I didn't know about how to pick good days for filming. And we filmed, I think it's over here. Yeah, I guess it's this one. Something for scale here. Okay, pretty good sized boulder. Interesting, it's kind of rounded. But when we filmed here, I don't know, what was that, 8 years ago, 9 years ago? I had my hammer with me for the camera, and it's an andesite. It's a good andesite from the Cascades. This is probably a better shot here. Yeah, this is better lit for you here. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you want to play devil's advocate? That's totally fine. That's what we do in science. We constantly be skeptical until proven otherwise, but I don't know. How do you explain this boulder here unless you have a glacier right here. And of course, it's not just one boulder. Okay, people are worried about my keys. Yes, I have both sets of keys with me. Thank you for your concern. It's not just the isolated boulder, of course. You need, as a good field geologist, you need to kind of get some context. Hell, I'll say it, as a good human being, you need good context. Context is in short supply these days. Oh boy, I feel a rant coming on. Let's not go there. So context would be, let me get you a little further away from that boulder, that erratic, in amongst the cow pies here. And now let's pull back and realize that the context is hundreds of erratics of different sizes, not all big like that guy. But then as a geologist, you go, well, I need to map this. How am I going to map this? Well, I'm going to bust open a few of these and get a kind of a sample of what we got. Oh, okay, that's an andesite. This one's an andesite. Oh, this is a rhyolite. It's like I'm not seeing any flood basalts. Now again, the ridge on the horizon is, I'm sorry, not again, that's Table Mountain. That's Columbia River basalt. So in the distance, the bedrock that's underneath us as well is the German chocolate cake, is the flood basalts. Even though we're close to the end, it's still a decent thickness. But you've got these boulders and smaller rocks that are all poorly sorted, slightly weathered, slightly rounded, and hardly any of them are basalt. So you make a map, you follow this hummocky topography with these boulders of different sizes, and you map out a glacial moraine. Thorp Prairie. And then again, your eye as a field mapper is drawn to that blonde ridge on the other side of the freeway, beautifully lit right now. If you can find that old video, I actually made a mistake. I think I was standing right here and I looked across the way, and I think I talked to the viewer, and I said, do you see that low blonde ridge? That's a moraine. And then Tom Foster, who is smarter than almost everybody with one geology class in his background, said, I dug and dug into Richard Waite's mapping, and he doesn't say that's a moraine. He says that's the Thorp Prairie outwash. I'm like, are you shitting me? Sorry, Patrick. And I was right. He was wrong. Oh no, wait. Of course, Tom was right, I was wrong. So, the video still exists, but it's got an error in it. So, those kind of ridges, those beautifully blonde ridges, are some of the terraces that extend away from the moraine here. I didn't even really understand the terrace story when we filmed that, to be totally honest with you. Okay, I'm going to take advantage of the good light for you. I'm not going to shoot too much going directly west. We still have 1,000 people, I think, so I assume that means we're still functional. I don't really know if we're going to do any live Q&A because, just cause. Yeah. Okay, so even though it's breezy, Thorp Prairie in the foreground, Thorp Prairie on the other side of the road, Thorp Prairie all the way to the break-in slope, and then suddenly you lift to the terrace, which is older. This is actually a great spot. I've never really done this at this time of night. This is another perfect spot to show. I'm excited now, officially. Just like the cartoon, which I'm not going to dig out again, the terraces are different levels. The oldest terrace is the highest. Then you scoop out most of that outwash. Next ice advance. Lower elevation of the ice, lower elevation of the moraine, lower elevation of the terrace. Fill that in. Now scoop most of that out. Next ice comes in, doesn't get as far, is thinner. outwash and terrace and terrain and moraine lower yet. It's kind of like a nested, like a Russian doll thing in a weird way. I just came up with that. I'm not sure that works, but yeah, we're starting to get some nice looking back into the Kittitas Valley. Our backyard where we normally live stream is right down in that hole. I can see the water tower on Craig's Hill. I don't know if you can. You probably can't. Actually, I'll in case you really want to see the water tower. You see the van. You see the power line. You see the power pole next to the van. Well, power pole next to the van. And then there's another power pole right there. Craig's Hill's water tower is a cute little gumdrop right behind that little pole. Who cares? Who cares, Evelyn? You're looking live. Oh, Brett Musburger used to say it. You're looking live at Pontiac, Michigan. There's a showdown between the Barry Sanders Detroit Lions and the Walter Payton Chicago Bears. I can sing the NFL on CBS theme song, but I can't remember it. Okay, so we're there. We just looked at Thorp Prairie. We have decent light. Maybe we see the difference between moraine and terrace. What else are we doing? I want to take you to this cherry spot over here that I think has 3 bars, and we'll try to get a nice little peek of Mount Stewart. And then I'll keep you in the dashboard and we'll drive back to the ladder with the best light of the evening before we sign off. It's 10 minutes to 7. Sound like a deal? Our drive is like 5 minutes from here, so it's not going to be a marathon session. Car number 10. Oh, it's like a Yugo or something. Mommy, what's a Yugo? Oh, I don't know. That man is living in the past, dear. I don't know a graceful way to set you down. I need 2 hands here, so you're going back in the grass. Gizmo's having a seizure. Are you guys okay? Oh boy, what happened? I don't know what happened there, but hopefully we're back. You okay? Now the life of a farmer is, dang these blasted boulders, let's get them out of this field. We got some work to do. So you send the kid out and you say, we gotta group these boulders together. Unless you're up on the Waterville Plateau, and then the boulders are so big, those milk duds are so big. It's like, well, I guess we'll just have to farm around them. So those that know about farming, you know that there's many of those big boulders along a fence line, and that's not an accident. Hard work to get those boulders to the fence line. Offensive terms for some of those boulders, by the way. Okay, 5 more minutes up the road. Hope this is working for you. Ooh, what a sexy vehicle. I wonder whose vehicle this is. Oh, that dreamboat? Oh, okay. There's a chance this is going to be a great shot. There's an equal chance it'll be a colossal failure. But why not give it the old college try? Might lose you again. I'm going to drop down a little bit of a hole. If you're laying in your bed right now in Denmark at 3 in the morning, driving with me on the road as the sun is late in the day, it's kind of amazing, isn't it? It's kind of amazing how we've advanced with technology. Meadowlark. I'm going 30 miles an hour. FYI. Can't remember any other boulders nearby that we can look at on our drive. We're still on Thorp Prairie. We're still on the Terminal Moraine. Uh-oh, what's this? Oh my God. This is new. Oh my God. Somebody's doing some digging into the till. I don't know what they're doing, but that cut, oh, it's kind of in the shadow on the tree side of it. Let's cross this culvert, see if there, oh yeah, there's a couple of erratics there. Huh, I wonder what they're doing. Let's see if I can swing back for you. So that's a look inside of some glacial tills, inside of the moraine. I can't zoom for you, but maybe you can see they've got a pile of boulders, of erratics over on the right. And there's a couple erratics up on that slope. What are they doing there? I don't get it. That's totally natural though. It's not a pile of stuff brought in. I'm confident of that. Okay, we're approaching Elk Heights and a little development called Sunlight Waters. If we had more time, we'd stop and get a bag of cherries, but I guess we won't. Cherries are coming on. This episode of Nick from Home brought to you by Rainier Cherries. You gotta love them. The Cadillac of fruit. Vapors flying around, this time inside of the van. I can handle that. I don't have to go chasing. More glacial till, and then we're gonna snuggle up right next to the freeway here. Some cherries do sound good about right now. Okay, a couple more minutes and we're to my spot. The goal is to get a nice view of Mount Stewart. We'll park and walk just a couple of minutes. See if we have any luck. Going down into a hole might lose you. If you're curious about this road, it's a nice drive. If you know this area, you can follow it all the way down into Cleellum. And if you kind of have been able to conceptualize this terrace story, and you want to think more about the terraces, you just drop from one terrace to the next. It's pretty dramatic, I gotta say. Once you kind of get the hang of it, it's not an easy concept. So again, we're going to snuggle right up next to the freeway, so you're going to hear some traffic now. Even at our secret spot, I think the visual will be nice, but I think we're going to have a traffic noise issue. We'll do our best just to block that out. I'm mainly talking to myself now. Okay, we're here. Rolling up the windows. Big old boys right there. Glacial erratics. All right, let's see if this works. Well, I can't zoom and I can't quite get the Stewarts are kind of in the shadows. But again, I think that unexpectedly the star of the show is the top of Lookout Mountain, where you can see this. That's the, this is great. That's the edge of the Columbia River basalt lavas right there. And they just get to this pine and that's it. There is no more Columbia River basalt after that. So geologically, this is a very significant boundary, even though the lighting is wrong for the Stewarts. I'm still glad we came up here. In fact, if I bushwhack a little bit here, I'll get you on the other side of this. Yeah, there was a bad fire here, the Taylor Bridge fire. I think that's which one it was. We've had so many fires in the last 15 years, it's hard to keep them straight, but this is an area that was burned pretty severely. Still charred pretty good. So I've struggled in here just to, again, I can't zoom, but maybe you can see there's some basalt stratigraphy in that cliff over there. And those are the Grand Ronde flows. If you happen to know the stratigraphy in the German chocolate cake, that's that stubborn top of the Grand Ronde lavas. Same as the stubborn top of the Grand Ronde lavas where the freeway was climbing across the river at Ginkgo, if you recall. This is the same top of the Grand Ronde lavas that's at the base of Dry Falls, and so on. And off to the right, on the distance, Table Mountain. So lookouts on your left, tables on your right in the distance. Both of them are flood basalts, but the end of the line, like two giant gangplanks. And as soon as you jump off the end of the gangplank, you're jumping into significantly older bedrock. Okay, well, we improvise the best we can, don't we? So the Stewart view is not so great. Okay, are we into hazards again? It's okay about the ticks. I promise it'll be okay. The benefits of getting out here and seeing stuff far outweigh the other things. All right, let me concentrate so I don't face plant here, and we'll take a drive back to the ladder if you want to stick with us. Traffic noise is kind of a drag. All right, I'm just curious. I'm just curious. Nope, not worth it. You don't have all day. So I'm thinking this is about 10 minutes more. We'll just do a nice little drive back over the terrain we were looking at. but with a nice backlit scene. And I don't think there'll be anything more to talk about content-wise, but I think you might be able to see some things that you were unable to see before. And I could very well say right now here, I'll keep my mouth shut and just let you watch, but we know that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. Because I love talking about geology with people who want to listen. Just think of how rare this is for me. Usually I just keep my mouth shut. People don't want to hear what I've got to say. They just want to talk about other stuff, and I totally get that. Back on Thorp Prairie proper. You can kind of see how it opens up. I don't know much about vegetation, but it's probably not an accident there's not a bunch of vegetation here. I mean, they call it a prairie for a reason. So many of you are still with us, and I'm pleased to see that, because now that I think about it, as we drive back to the ladder, it's going to be very instructional, I think, to drop off of the terminal moraine, drop down to the next terrace, drive on that terrace for a while. I think I just decided I want to drive past the ladder, drop down to another terrace. You can see how pronounced these terraces are, these outwash terraces from the Yakima Valley Glacier. And then I think I'll put a link, now that I'm kind of thinking about putting links in show descriptions. Maybe later tonight or tomorrow morning, I'll put a link in the paragraph below this show that gets you to the field trip handouts that had the colors on it. that I was trying to show, but I was all blinded by the glare and everything, so I wasn't sure how that was working. So those are my field trip handouts that you are free to download as a PDF if you like, and even print them out and use them however. All that stuff that's on my website is free and open to anybody to use. So many of the field trip guides from Carl and many of the field trip guides from me are at nickzentner.com. If you click on the Ellensburg chapter window, Ellensburg chapter of the Ice Age Floods Institute. Okay, crossing the canal, crossing that new exposure, about to get back to the area where we walked to the boulder, the erratic, and then we will drop, with some good light, we will drop off of this moraine and down to the Indian John outwash plain. If you didn't see it before, I think you'll see it now because of the position of the sun, which is such a crucial part of this being out here. I don't know if you're aware of that, but when you do field trips or why are we not horizontal here with the camera? I won't obsess about it. Maybe I will. You're tilted, aren't you? It's a little more still tilted. You can see how picky I am. Yeah, time of day and the lighting is a huge part of teaching in the field, and of course filming in the field. But just being on a field trip, you know, you can be to a spot and pointing out something and everybody's like, I don't see what you're talking about, and then you can go to the same spot 6 hours later, sun's in a different spot, and it's like super obvious. All right, kind of a nice view now, back looking back into the Kittitas Valley. And say goodbye to Thorp Prairie, aka the Terminal Moraine, aka our Glacial Till that we'll get another chance to look at. I'll slow down here. There's our Glacial Till, deposited here by a glacier 600,000 years ago. And I failed to mention it at the time, but the boulders are quite weathered. Like if you have a moraine with boulders that were deposited there less than 20,000 years ago, the boulders look very fresh. But there's a weathering rind on these boulders. There's some loess that's accumulated on top, and so it's an old looking moraine. Okay, we just dropped off the lip of the Terminal Moraine, and now maybe you can start to see that we have a gently sloping surface. That's the outwash terrace. But it's not perfectly level. These outwash terraces have a slight slant to them. It's almost like a sheet of plywood that just has a slight dip. I got big tractor behind me, big trailer behind me. So beyond the trailer, you not only can see the outwash plain that we're about to leave, by the way, but can you see in the distance there's the matching outwash plain? I can't zoom, so I guess you can't, but boy, it is striking to leave that hummocky prairie and get into these sheets of plywood that have a slight slope to them. Okay, so we're leaving the Swak Prairie outwash, in case anybody cares. And now we drop down Rocky Canyon using the cut, a natural cut, but they embellished it to put the freeway in here. We'll drop down to a younger outwash plain, the Indian John. I've forgotten the number at the moment. 300,000? No, 130,000. 130,000 years. So we just left an outwash plain that's 600,000 years old. Now we're down to one. As soon as we hang a left at the stop sign, we'll be down to an outwash plain from an advance that only got to Suncadia but the ice only got to Cle Elum, but the outwash, Indian John, filled this part of the valley. Back on East Hainham Road, heading east. And we're there, back on the terrace. The terrace we started, the terrace with Larry Ladder. You know, one of my first geology classes, we took a Saturday field trip on one of those chartered buses that have a microphone. And we're driving around southern Wisconsin with our professor. His name was Francis Hole. He's a well-known soil scientist. He was a character. This is the early 1980s. All right, we got out of the hole. I think we're back. Let me pause up here and give you a chance to get yourself right. Okay, I'll finish my story, and then I'll also give you a chance while I'm finishing my story to give you a chance to get yourself right. So we're back, and you need to refresh your browser and also possibly go down to your gear icon in your lower right and drop down from 720 to 480, maybe drop back up to 720 again, and I think your buffering will be back to normal. So Francis Hole was just I'll give you a nice view when I finish this story. So Francis Hole was just driving with this bus, and he was talking the whole time into this microphone, and he was like seeing the Ice Age. Like he was near my town. Like towns like with the, oh yeah, there's the Dairy Queen, and yeah, there's the place that we used to make out and all that. And we're rolling by, and he's like, so there was a glacial river here, and this is where there was a glacial lake, and this advance from the Green Bay lode came in, and Kettle Moraine, and I was like, I'd like to know how to do that. How does this guy know how to read the landscape like that? He was like in a different world, and he was on the bus with us. So, you know, I was pretty out of it at the time, but that left a huge impression on me, that you could learn enough material to then do what we're doing right now. So I've learned from those guys. I've learned from many others. And if you like my style, it's a direct result of many of those good people in my background. And we can all say that, can't we? Hey man, pretty good light now. You see that terrace lit up across the way? I hope you can see it now. Oh, damn, that's nice. Sorry, Patrick. This is high quality Timothy hay. Top dollar hay, probably going to be shipped across the Pacific. And we have a buck. You're not going to believe me, and I can't zoom. We've got some antlers right in that shadow. God, how can I describe it to you? He's looking at us. Can you see him? You know what I'll do? Right there. So do you see a fence post? And then like a milkweedy like thing, and then the buck is just to the right and back in that shadow in the middle of that hay, like a mule deer. I can't get you any closer. Good evening, young fellow. How are you doing tonight? Do you realize you're grazing on the Indian John Outwash Plain? Hey, I'm talking to you. Listen, there used to be a glacier here. Oh, another one's laying down. Well, this is like driving with my dad. Go out purposely at dusk to look for wildlife. Can anybody see that? I can't. All right. All right. Yeah, there's Sasquatch over there, so great. All right. I can't think of a more impressive place to teach glacial outwash than right here, these outwash plains. It just doesn't get any better than this location right here. And now you can see the white bluffs on the right, and that's not the Ringgold Formation, that's the Ellensburg Formation. Those are volcanic lahars that came from a volcano that used to stand near Bumping Lake over by White Pass. Long story, different story. Okay, I see Larry Ladder, and Stewarts are still in the shade, but a nice little profile. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to bust right past Larry Ladder, and we're going to drop down to the next terrace just to rub it in a little bit more. Just to rub it in just a little bit more. Hello, Larry Ladder. We'll see you in a second. I miss you, Larry. Okay, ready? We're going to drop. You're like, baloney, we're not going to drop. Yes, we are. Because the terrace we were just on got washed away, scooped out, and here's the next one. The bullfrog, I believe. Can't remember my dates. 80,000 years ago. You see, we gently come down to this guy, the bullfrog outwash. Now this glacier got only to Bullfrog Road exit, kind of up by Suncadia. Oh, why not? If we're still functional, let's go down to the last one. We're dropping again. Left the bullfrog. Can't even remember the next one. I guess the Dale. I guess we're seeing how flat we are here. We're down to the Lake Dale. So I think you got the point. A bunch of flat fields out here, each of them a separate story. Let me pull off. We'll pull off here. Well, boys and girls, I believe that's the end of our program this evening. I sure do appreciate you joining us. And it's all about improvisation, isn't it? The original plan was to be at Central Washington University and talk about being a geology major and show off the building that we have. And I don't know, we might do that at some point, but I thought it was such a perfect evening and we would do this instead. You're welcome to come back on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'll keep my eye on the weather, but I think I'd like to broadcast from the field again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, and we'll look at some giant current ripples. And then Sunday, we'll be back at my house, backyard, front porch, I'm not sure. Sunday morning, Yellowstone geology. A toast to you. Here's to you and your health. Here's to the health of your parents, your grandparents, your children, your grandchildren. Here's to your physical, mental, and general well-being, the well-being of all of us as we are here approaching summer solstice all around the world. I thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll look for you on Saturday morning. Good evening, goodbye, adios, guten tag, buenas noches from the Thorp Prairie near Thorp, Washington, USA. I love you. Good night. X. What the? X.